The sky was gray that afternoon, and the grocery store parking lot buzzed with the quiet exhaustion of midweek routine. Inside the store, soft music played over the intercom, barely masking the stress in the air. It was one of those days when people just wanted to get their groceries and go home. But for a young mother named Nia Thomas, today was anything but routine. Nia stood in the checkout line, her toddler clinging to her leg and a half-full cart in front of her. Her hands trembled slightly as she fumbled through her worn-out purse. She had carefully calculated everything she needed: milk, rice, a few vegetables, diapers. The total blinked up on the screen, $52.30. Nia only had 40. She knew it before she got here, but she hoped maybe the prices had dropped or she had miscalculated in her notebook. The cashier, a teenage boy with earbuds, half hanging from one ear, looked at her silently, then looked back at the line forming behind her. An older man sighed loudly 2 customers back. Another woman tapped her foot. Nia felt heat rise to her cheeks. "You can take off the cereal," Nia said softly, trying to keep her voice steady. "And the juice." Her son tugged her sleeve. "But Mommy, I like the juice." "I know, baby, I know," she whispered, blinking quickly to stop the tears. Just as the cashier reached for the cereal box, a calm voice spoke from behind her. Got it." The words were gentle, but firm. Nia turned around, confused. Behind her stood a tall man in a plain hoodie and jeans, holding just a basket of fruit and almond milk. His face was familiar, but she couldn't place it. "Excuse me?" she asked, unsure. "I'll cover it," he repeated, handing his card to the cashier before she could stop him. Nia shook her head. No, that's very kind, but I insist," the man said, smiling. "Just take care of your little one." The cashier shrugged and ran the card, paid in full. Nia stared at the stranger, stunned, her heart pounding not just from embarrassment, but from something else, an energy in the air. Like this moment meant more than just groceries. "Thank you," she said, tears finally escaping. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he replied. "Just promise me you'll keep going, no matter how hard it gets." She nodded. Her son looked up at the man and gave a shy wave. The man smiled warmly, waved back, then quietly left without another word. As Nia loaded her car in the cold breeze outside, she thought about how sometimes life surprised you when you least expected it. Still, she didn't know the full weight of that moment. Not yet. 3 hours later, Nia had just finished putting her son to sleep. She sat on her worn couch in the tiny living room of her apartment, watching the flickering light from the old television. Her heart still felt strange, grateful, but also heavy. She didn't like being helped. She didn't like not having control, but something about that man's presence had felt safe, intentional, familiar. And she heard it. A low rumble of engines outside. Not 1, not 2, but 3. She got up and peeked through the curtain. Her breath caught in her chest. 3 black SUVs parked in front of her building. Her first instinct was fear. Was it the government? Police? Someone looking for her ex? Her hands shook as she reached for her phone, but before she could dial, there was a knock at the door. Not loud. Just steady. Knock. Knock. Her stomach dropped. Her son stirred in the next room, and she tiptoed to the door, pressing her eye to the PEPOLE. A tall man in a black suit stood there, holding a tablet. He looked calm but focused. Behind him, 2 other men stood by the SUVs, scanning the surroundings. "Miss Thomas?" The man at the door called softly. She didn't answer. "We're not here to harm you. We were sent by someone important." Nia's heart raced. "Who?" She managed to say through the door. The man paused, then said just 2 words. "Sundar." "Pichai." And in that moment, every breath in her lungs vanished. She staggered back, clutching the wall for support. The man in the grocery store. The quiet, unassuming man with kind eyes. That was him, the CEO of Google. She looked around her apartment, cracks in the paint, unpaid bills on the table, empty cupboards, and suddenly the room felt like it was spinning. The man knocked again, this time softer. May we come in? She opened the door slowly, still unsure if this was real. We have a message for you, the man said, stepping inside. And a gift. And our pichai asked us to deliver it personally. Nia stared as he handed her the tablet. On the screen was a video message. She tapped play with trembling fingers. Sundar appeared, sitting on a simple bench in what looked like a park. Hi, Nia, he said gently. I hope this message finds you at a peaceful moment. Today, I saw something that reminded me of where I came from. A mother doing everything she can, quietly, without asking for help. That takes strength. It reminded me of my own mother and how much she sacrificed. He paused, looking into the camera with kindness. I didn't help you today because you needed it. I helped you because I see greatness in you. And now I want to do more. Nia's breath caught. I've arranged something for you and your son. I hope you'll accept it. And if you choose not to, that's okay too. But know that someone sees you. Someone believes in you. The video ended. The man in the suit handed her an envelope. Inside was a key. And a document.nia single quotes as Nies gave. Out, and she collapsed onto the couch, staring at the paper in disbelief. It was a deed to a small house in a quiet neighborhood, outside. The city, mortgage-free, fully furnished. This can't be real, she whispered. It is, the man said. Mr. Pichai wanted you to have a fresh start, a safe home. For you and your child. Tears streamed down Nia's face, and her hands shook as she clutched the key. But before she could say anything else, the man added something that made her heart freeze. There's one more thing. Someone from your past reached out after seeing the security footage from the store. He's been trying to find you. He's here right now, waiting outside. Nia looked up slowly, confused and afraid. Who? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. The man hesitated, then nodded toward the door. Your brother. And with that, the door opened again. A figure stepped inside. And Nia's world was about to change forever. Asterisk. The man at the door of the room stood still for a long moment. As the figure stepped inside, Nia's breath caught in her throat. She couldn't move. Her legs felt frozen, as if the floor had fused to her feet. The man in front of her looked older, thinner, and slightly bent with time. But his eyes hadn't changed. Deep brown, full of weight and warmth. The kind of eyes that carried stories, some spoken, most buried. Her mind reeled back in time to a little boy who used to run through the cracked streets of their childhood neighborhood with scraped knees and a wild grin. The boy who protected her when other kids laughed at her hand-me-down shoes. The boy who swore he'd never leave her. But he did. He disappeared 15 years ago. And now he was standing in front of her, looking like a ghost made flesh. Elijah, she whispered, her voice barely carrying through the heavy silence. He smiled, gently, the kind of smile that hurt because it was so familiar. The kind that made her want to cry and scream and hug him all at once. Hey, sis, he said softly, rubbing the back of his neck like he used to when they were kids and he got caught sneaking. Cookies.ni single quotes as legs finally moved. She stumbled forward, still holding the envelope with the house deed in one hand and the tablet in the other. Her fingers trembled, and she reached out as if afraid he might disappear if she blinked. But he didn't. He stepped forward, too, and they met in the middle of the room, their arms wrapped around each other like the years hadn't passed at all, like the wounds could finally start to close. She clung to him, burying her face in his chest, sobbing. Not the soft kind of crying. The kind that came from deep within, from years of pain and questions and silence. She cried for the nights she spent wondering if he was alive. She cried for the days she had to be strong for her son when she felt empty inside. And most of all, she cried because someone, somewhere, maybe by fate, maybe by divine timing, had brought him back. Elijah held her tightly. I'm so sorry, he whispered again and again. I should have never left. I was messed up. I didn't know how to fix things back then. I thought disappearing was better than failing you. Nia pulled away, just enough to look at him. You didn't fail me, she said, wiping her eyes. You broke me. You were all I had. He nodded, swallowing hard. His voice cracked. And now I'm here to put things right. The man in the suit who had delivered the message from Sundar watched respectfully, then gave a slight nod. I'll give you both some privacy, he said, stepping outside quietly. The door closed behind him, and suddenly the small apartment felt like it was pulsing with memories. Elijah looked around. At the peeling wallpaper, the sagging couch, the scattered toys on the floor, he noticed the stack of unopened bills on the table. His jaw clenched. You've been doing this all on your own? He asked. And I exhaled. Yeah, since Jaden's dad left. Been working cleaning jobs, picking up shifts wherever I can. Nights are the hardest, but she looked toward the room where her son was sleeping. He's worth it. Elijah's eyes softened. He's beautiful. Just like his mama. Naya raised a brow. Don't. Try to charm me. You got some explaining to do. He nodded and sat down, motioning for her to do the same. The envelope with the deed still lay on her lap as she lowered herself onto the couch beside him. I went into the military, he began slowly. Left home after everything with Dad got too bad. I couldn't take the shouting, the drinking, the way he looked at you like you were a burden. I knew if I stayed, something terrible was gonna happen. I figured if I joined the army, I could send money back. Maybe make something of myself. But the first few years I messed up, got into trouble, ended up getting discharged. Dishonorably. Nia stared, silent. After that, Elijah continued. I bounced around. Construction jobs, truck driving. Then I got into tech repair, of all things. Did a few gigs for startup companies. One day, I fixed a laptop for this guy who turned out to be a recruiter at a conference. Said I had a good head and offered to train me. I didn't believe it at first, but I figured I had nothing to lose. He looked at her, a glimmer of pride in his eyes. Long story short, I learned fast. Started working under some smart people. Eventually joined a project under Google's contract work division. They liked my work ethic. Started moving me around. Nia's eyes widened. Are you saying you work for Google now? Elijah nodded. Yeah. Not directly under Sundar Pichai, of course, but I've seen him in meetings. Everyone respects him. He's quiet, but sharp. He remembers names. Sometimes he just shows up and helps solve problems that teams have been stuck on for months. He doesn't brag about it. Just listens, asks questions. Then says something that flips the whole situation. Nia blinked, remembering the man at the grocery store. The one who stood behind her with almond milk and fruit, who said, I got it. I had no idea it was him. She murmured, I saw the security footage after one of my coworkers said it was trending inside our internal network. Elijah said, I froze when I saw you. I couldn't believe it. I called every contact I had, begged them to tell me how to reach you. One guy owed me a favor. Turns out, Sundar already had his team looking for you, wanted to help discreetly. When I told them who I was, they looped me in. Nia shook her head, overwhelmed. This is too much. The house, the video, you showing up. It's not too much, Elijah said gently. It's the universe finally giving you back something after all it took. She exhaled, pressing her hands over her face. I still feel like I don't deserve it. Elijah touched her hand. You do. You've survived things most people would break under. And now you get to breathe, maybe even dream again. Just then, a soft cry came from the other room. Dutton stood and walked quietly to her son's room, peeking inside. Jaden had kicked off his blanket in his sleep. She pulled it back over him gently, kissed his forehead, and came back out. Elijah was staring at the photo on the wall. It was old and faded, but it showed two kids standing on a porch, one girl holding a stick like a sword. The boy with a plastic bucket helmet, both grinning like they owned the world. I never forgot you, he said, not looking away from the picture. Even when I tried, Nia didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence was louder than any words. Suddenly, A knock came at the door again, not heavy. Just a polite tap. Nia tensed, but Elijah stood and peeked through the curtain. "It's them," he said. "They're here to take us to the house." Nia's mouth fell open. "Now? Yeah. Sundar wanted you to see it tonight. He said something about the stars being brighter there." Nia swallowed hard. She looked around the tiny apartment, her world for the past 4 years, every inch of it filled with struggle. Then she looked at her son's room, at the hallway, where the carpet peeled up, at the bathroom door that never closed properly. A new home. A second chance. A brother returned from silence. It felt surreal and terrifying and beautiful. What if it's all a dream? She whispered. Elijah smiled and opened the door. "Then let's wake up inside it." And just like that, the night air greeted them. Crisp, cold, full of possibility. The black SUVs waited quietly. And somewhere far away, Sundar Pichai sat in his office, watching a security monitor. He saw the mother step out of her apartment with her son in her arms and her brother beside her. He didn't say a word, but he smiled, because sometimes helping one person can rewrite 1,000 stories, and yet this story was only just beginning. As Nia stepped into the SUV and looked out at the city fading behind them. She didn't know the next 24 hours would hold another twist, one that would shake the entire tech industry. That was still ahead, and the stars above. Her new neighborhood were already beginning to shine. Asterisk. The house with stars above it, SUV, glided through the night like a quiet shadow. Its engine barely a whisper as the city lights slowly faded behind them. The roads widened, the buildings thinned, and the harsh neon glow gave way to the soft flicker of porch lamps and sleepy houses tucked behind tall trees. Nia leaned against the window, her son asleep in her arms, his breath soft against her chest. Her brother sat beside her in silence, his hand resting protectively on her shoulder, like he was trying to make up for 15 years of absence in one night. They hadn't spoken since the car pulled away from her apartment. But words weren't necessary now. The silence between them was not empty. It was full. Full of memories, unspoken apologies, and a strange, shared hope neither dared say out loud just yet. Elijah finally broke the quiet. "Yo, I used to dream about this exact moment." Nia turned slightly, eyes half-lidded from exhaustion and disbelief. "What moment?" "Being with you again? Taking you away from that old place. Driving you toward something better. Something you actually deserve." She didn't answer. Her heart was too swollen with emotion, and if she said anything, she knew her voice might crack. She just reached over and placed her free hand gently over his. It was her way of saying, "I missed you too." Soon, the SUV slowed as the driver tapped a small control panel on the dash. An invisible gate parted quietly, revealing a quiet cul-de-sac lined with freshly planted trees and soft amber streetlights. In the center of the circle stood a single-story house painted in soft cream and warm brown tones. The porch light was already on, casting a welcoming glow over the steps. It didn't look extravagant or flashy. It looked like peace, like healing, like home. The SUV came to a stop at the curb. The door opened. "We're here," the driver said, his voice polite and professional, but with a smile. I stepped out first, careful not to wake Jaden. The air smelled different here, cleaner, crisper, like flowers bloomed nearby even at night. Elijah followed, taking a deep breath and looking around, his eyes narrowing slightly in disbelief. "This neighborhood," he muttered. "This is one of those pilot eco-developments Sundar invested in. All solar, fully sustainable, low-income accessible. But they only built a few, and they don't sell them. They're giving to people Sundar hand selects." Nia blinked. "Hand selects?" Elijah nodded slowly. "He only chooses people who remind him of his mother. Strong, quiet warriors, people who work without recognition, people who don't quit." That single sentence sat in the air like holy scripture. Nia's knees went weak, and she found herself clinging a little tighter to Jaden. They stepped onto the porch, and the front door opened automatically with a soft chime. As they entered, warm light flooded the hallway, revealing soft oak floors. White walls with framed inspirational quotes and a faint smell of lavender from a diffuser in the corner. It didn't look lived in, but it didn't feel empty either. It felt ready, like it had been waiting for them. A woman stood in the foyer. She was dressed in a gray blazer and wore glasses. She held a tablet and a calm smile. "Good evening, Miss Thomas," she said kindly. "My name is Emma. I'm part of the transition team MR Pichai assigned to your case." Nia stepped back slightly. "Transition team?" "Yes," Emma nodded. "My job is to help you get settled into your new home, answer any questions, and assist with the next phase of your support plan." Nia stared. "Next phase?" Emma's smile deepened, but not in a patronizing way, in a genuine, gentle way. "Mr. Pichai doesn't believe in one-time handouts. He believes in long-term empowerment. This home is just step one." Nia looked at Elijah, confused and overwhelmed. "I don't understand. Why me?" "I'm nobody." Emma shook her head. "You're exactly the kind of person he watches for. People who show resilience, even in silence. Your act at the grocery store wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet strength, quiet sacrifice. And sometimes that speaks louder than anything else." Nia swallowed hard. Her throat was dry. Tears gathered at the edges of her vision, but she blinked them back. Emma gestured toward the living room. "Please, come sit. We have something to show you." They entered the living room, where a smart screen lit up with Sundar's name on. It started automatically, showing an extended video message. Sundar sat at a wooden desk, sunlight pouring through the window behind him. He looked calm, grounded, sincere. "Nia," he began, "when I saw you at the store, I remembered something my mother once told me when I was a child in Chennai. She said, when someone is struggling silently, the loudest thing you can do is notice." He paused, hands folded. "I noticed you. Not out of pity, but because you reminded me of someone I deeply respect. My mother gave everything to raise us. She didn't ask for credit. She didn't wait for applause. She simply did what was necessary, with dignity." The camera cut to footage of Nia in the grocery store, her eyes darting around, doing math. In her head, removing cereal and juice while her son tugged on her coat. "You weren't just buying food," Sundar continued. "You were protecting your son from the reality of not having enough. That matters, and it moved me deeply." He leaned forward, a glint of emotion in his voice. "I asked my team to find you not because I felt sorry for you, but because I believe in investing in people who don't give up." The video faded to black, and in its place came a list of opportunities. Full scholarship for Nia to complete her associate degree in early childhood education. On site job training for remote administrative work. Google certified. Childcare provided. Personal. Financial advisor assigned. Mental health and trauma therapy services. Fully covered. IA single quotes. Ice lips parted. Her knees gave out and she collapsed onto the couch, stunned into silence. Emma crouched beside her, gently placing a hand on her back. "We're here to help you every step of the way," she said softly. And I looked up, her face a canvas of disbelief and gratitude. "Why would someone do this for me?" Emma replied, "Because someone believes that changing the world starts with changing one life." Across the room, Elijah had turned his back, wiping his face quietly. Overwhelmed. Just then, Jaden stirred. In Nia's arms, his eyes fluttered open, still half asleep. "Mommy, where are we?" Nia kissed his forehead, her voice cracking with love. "We're home, baby." As she spoke the words, something shifted in her. It was like years of pain cracked open, but instead of bleeding, it bloomed. She felt light, almost floating. Not because everything was solved, but because, for the first time in a long time, the fight wasn't hers alone. They spent the next few hours exploring the house. The kitchen had new appliances. The pantry was stocked. Jaden's room had a tiny bed with a rocket-themed blanket and a plush bear holding a note, "Dream big." There was even a small office space in the back with a computer already set up. Beside it lay a schedule labeled Nia's new beginnings. Emma eventually left, promising to return the next day with a welcome packet and key cards. Elijah stayed. The night sleeping on the couch like he used to when they were younger, watching over her like an older brother should, but even as Nia lay in her bed with Jaden curled against her, sleep did not come easily, because somewhere in the back of her mind, she couldn't shake a strange thought. Why now? Why her? And how did Sundar Pichai happen to be there that exact day? Her gut whispered something didn't quite add up. And early the next morning, as dawn broke and light spilled through her new curtains, a knock came at the front door. This time. It wasn't the driver. It was a woman holding a folder. And behind her stood another black SUV with tinted windows. Double quotes, Thomas, the woman said, her tone measured but urgent. I need to talk to you about something, privately. It's about your brother and Sundar Pichai. Nia's heart dropped. What do you mean? She asked, stepping onto the porch. Pulling her sweater close, the woman opened the folder. Inside was a photo, and when Nia saw it, everything in her world stopped. The image was of Elijah. But he wasn't working on a laptop or fixing electronics. He was in a lab. Beside Sundar Pichai, wearing a badge that said confidential, Project Monarch. And the truth behind it. It was something no one was supposed to know. Not yet. Asterisk secrets buried under silicon. The morning air was cold. But Nia's skin burned. She stared at the photograph, her hand trembling slightly as the paper bent in her fingers. The image was high resolution, taken from an overhead camera. In the frame, Elijah stood beside Sundar Pichai in what looked like a secure facility. The walls were metallic, the lighting clinical. Both wore white lab coats. Sundar had his hands behind his back, observing a glowing panel on a table. Elijah, on the other hand, was pointing to something on a holographic screen. He didn't look like a tech assistant or a temporary contractor. He looked like someone in charge. This can't be, Nia whispered, her voice barely escaping. Her throat. My brother said he just fixed laptops. Helped at startups. The woman standing on her porch gave a tight smile, her expression unreadable. She was dressed in a black turtleneck and slacks. No visible badge, no logo on her car, and her presence felt controlled, precise, like someone trained not to blink unless necessary. He told you what he needed to, she said. But the truth is, your brother is not who you think he is. And the project he's involved with is one of the most classified initiatives in the tech world. Nia took a shaky step back into her living room, clutching the photo like it might dissolve in her hand. Her mind raced. She thought back to the things Elijah had said in the car, about bouncing from job to job, about fixing things. But he'd never once mentioned anything like this. She turned to the woman, eyes blazing now. Who are you? What is this project? And why are you showing me this? The woman stepped forward, her heels silent on the wooden porch. My name is Riley. I work with a private security consultancy that advises on data leaks and high-level tech operations. I'm not here to harm you or your family. I'm here because you need to understand the weight of what's happening. Nia folded her arms protectively across her chest. You show up at my house, say cryptic things about my brother and Sundar, and expect me to just believe you? Riley sighed, pulling a second envelope from her leather briefcase. Inside. This envelope is a non-disclosure agreement. Before I tell you more, you'll need to sign it. It's standard protocol. If you break the agreement, the consequences are, I'm not signing anything. Nia cut in. Eyes narrowed. Riley held her gaze for a moment, then slowly tucked the envelope back into her bag. Fine. I figured you'd say that. Let me explain what I can. Nia closed the door behind them and led her to the kitchen, where the soft hum of the refrigerator was the only sound. Jaden was still asleep in his new bed. Unaware that the world was tilting under his mother's feet, Riley placed a small device on the table, pressed a button, and a low static hum began to buzz around them. Scrambler, she said. Prevents eavesdropping. Nia sat down, arms still folded. Riley leaned in. What I'm about to say doesn't leave this room. You have my word, Nia said softly. Project Monarch, Riley began, isn't just about technology. It's about the future of human-machine integration. We're talking neural augmentation, interfaces that allow direct communication between human thought and artificial intelligence. Nia blinked. Like mind reading? Not exactly. More like mind syncing. Machines that respond to the user's intention before they act. Devices that can predict, guide, and even suggest real-time solutions to life-threatening problems. It's designed for medical use, for military strategy, even personal assistance. The implications are vast. And Elijah, Nia whispered. Already knowing the answer? Your brother is one of the core architects, Riley confirmed. He helped reverse engineer a prototype that could allow blind individuals to interpret visual data through neural pulses. He didn't just fix laptops. He rebuilt the foundation of what this technology could become. Nia felt like the walls were spinning around her. Why didn't he tell me? Riley's face softened just slightly. Because it's dangerous. The kind of people who would pay to steal even one blueprint wouldn't blink twice at threatening his family to get it. So why would Sundar Pichai put him in public? At a grocery store with me? With my son? Why would he expose us like that? Riley hesitated. That's the part I'm still figuring out. Just then, the front door creaked. Elijah stood in the hallway, face pale, eyes sharp with quiet fury. He'd heard enough. You had no right, he said coldly to Riley. Riley stood calmly, unfazed. She needed to know, Elijah. You should have told her before someone else did, and put her in danger. He snapped. You think I haven't spent every day of my life making sure no one traces anything back to her? Nia stood now, her voice low and filled with heartbreak. You lied to me. Elijah turned to her, stepping closer, guilt etched into every feature of his face. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. Nia stared at him. You told me you were a repair guy, a contractor. Now you're some secret scientist working on brain interfaces? What else haven't you told me? He rubbed his hands over his face. I couldn't tell anyone. Not even my team knows the full picture. But when I saw you again after all these years, and then Sundar found you before I did, I panicked. I thought maybe if I stayed quiet, this could just be about giving you a better life. Something clean. Untouched. Nia's voice cracked. But it's not clean, is it? I've been given a house, a job path, support, and none. Oh, it's random. Elijah looked down. Was it Sundar's idea to help me? Or was it yours? He hesitated. Riley stepped in again. The moment Sundar saw the footage from the grocery store, he paused everything else. He was in the middle of a board meeting about quantum neural chips, and he excused himself mid-sentence. When he came back, he'd already started drafting a plan to track you down. The footage went through internal networks. A few key staff recognized you from Elijah's personnel file. Nia sat back down, deflated. So it was pity. Charity. No, Elijah said quickly, kneeling beside her. It wasn't. Sundar isn't the kind of man who throws gifts to strangers. He only helps when he sees something in someone. He saw your strength, your grace under pressure. That's real. I didn't tell him to do it, but once I knew you were on his radar, I made sure to stay close. And now? She asked quietly. What happens now? Riley checked her watch. Now we prepare. Project Monarch is moving into final stage trials. There are rumors that a rival firm in Berlin has been trying to poach engineers with access. Someone leaked the footage of Sundar with you at the store. They're connecting dots. And once they figure out you're Elijah's sister, Nia felt cold again. The kind of cold that no jacket could fix. What are you saying? She asked. Are we in danger? Riley nodded solemnly. You... maybe. A silence dropped between them, thick and paralyzing. Jaden's soft footsteps echoed down the hall, and he appeared in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes. Mommy? Why are you crying? Nia wiped her face fast and opened her arms. He climbed into her lap, Just tired, baby, she whispered. Riley took a step back and gave them space. We'll provide full security detail. For you and your son, 24-hour surveillance. You'll still get the home, the job track, everything, but you'll also need to follow new protocols. Like what? Elijah asked cautiously. Non-disclosure, Riley said. Encrypted communication only. Restricted access to public locations. And you'll both need to move again soon. This house is beautiful, but it's compromised. Too many eyes now. Nia closed her eyes, overwhelmed again. A home given, now taken. Safety promised, now questioned. A brother returned, now shadowed by secrets. How did we go from groceries to this? She asked, barely above a whisper. Elijah looked at her, and for once, his voice was steady, because the world doesn't change quietly, Nia. Sometimes, the smallest moment, a stranger paying for your food, turns into something that reshapes everything. Nia looked down at her son. His breathing was soft, innocent, and she realized then this wasn't just her story anymore, It was the beginning of something much bigger, but somewhere deep in the edges of her mind, a thought whispered. Again, why her? Why did Sundar really notice? And what if the truth wasn't kindness, but something else? A test? A plan? She didn't know it yet, but in the coming days, Sundar Pichai would call her directly. And when he did, the truth he revealed would append. Everything she believed about him, and about herself. The call that changed everything. Nia sat on the edge of her son's new bed that evening, staring at the wall without really seeing it. Jaden had fallen asleep beside her, his small body curled up with one hand clutching the corner of his rocket blanket. He looked so peaceful, unaware of how the world had suddenly changed around them, unaware that his uncle had once been a ghost, now turned guardian, unaware that their lives were being watched, guarded, and possibly manipulated by one of the most powerful men on earth. The house was too quiet. Riley had left hours ago after briefing Elijah on security protocols. Cameras were being installed around the perimeter. There were now 2 vehicles stationed at opposite ends of the block. Men inside watching the neighborhood with expressionless faces and earpieces tucked discreetly under their collars. This wasn't the kind of safety Nia had imagined when she thought of stability. It didn't feel like a blessing anymore. It felt like a cage made of invisible wires. Downstairs, Elijah paced in the living room. He hadn't said much since Riley left. She could hear the floorboards creak under his steps, back and forth like a metronome counting down to something inevitable. And I got up, pulled the blanket higher over Jaden, and quietly left the room. When she came down the stairs, Elijah was standing at the window, looking out into the night. A sliver of light fell across his face, highlighting the tension in his jaw. He didn't turn when she walked in. You still think you protected me? She asked softly. He nodded slowly. I do. Nia walked past him, sat on the couch, and folded her hands in her lap. I think you buried me. He turned at that, his face full of guilt. I never meant for any of this to happen. When I left all those years ago, it wasn't because I didn't love you. It was because I was drowning, and I didn't want you to see me like that. But I needed you, she whispered. And now you're back, and it's like you brought a storm with you. Before Elijah could respond, the phone on the kitchen counter vibrated. A strange vibration. Not her ringtone. Not Jaden's tablet. Not Elijah's phone. It was a sleek black device placed there by Riley earlier, secure communication line. She had called it. And I walked over and picked it up. The screen lit up, displaying just one word. Incoming call. Sundar Pichai froze. It's him, she said. Elijah moved toward her. You don't have to answer. We can call Riley. But something in her gut told her she had to take this one. Not through a middleman. Not through whispered updates and filtered truths. She tapped the screen. And a moment later, Sundar's face appeared. He was sitting in what looked like a quiet office. Bookshelves behind him. A warm lamp casting soft shadows across his face. He looked tired but composed, as always. Yeah, he said gently. Thank you for taking this call. She didn't speak at first. She studied his face, searching for the man she'd met in the grocery store, the quiet stranger who offered help with no expectation. The man who had handed his card to a cashier and vanished without saying his name. Was that real? Or was it the first move in a carefully designed plan? Sundar continued. I know you must have questions and doubt. I would too. Why me? She asked. The words fell from her lips like stones. He nodded. Because you're stronger than you know? Don't give me a slogan, she said, her voice rising slightly. Don't give me a tech speech. Tell me the truth. Sundar exhaled and leaned forward. The truth is, we've been watching you for longer than you think. Nia's stomach flipped. What does that mean? She asked. Not in a sinister way, he said quickly, but in a strategic one. Years ago, after Project Monarch entered development, we began a data initiative to identify individuals in society who demonstrated unusual resilience under pressure. People who overcame trauma, scarcity, abandonment, and yet retained compassion. We weren't looking for genius. We were looking for emotional intelligence, intuition, heart, and we didn't need a lab to find them. We needed the world itself. Nia felt like she couldn't breathe. You're saying I was part of a data experiment? She asked. Not an experiment, Sundar replied. A case study. And before you get angry, which you have every right to, let me explain. Every major advancement in human history starts with understanding behavior. Not just how people react, but why. How does a mother who has nothing still find a way to smile at her son? How does she remove food from her cart so her child won't feel her panic? How does she walk home with dignity after being quietly humiliated? At checkout, you paused. You taught us something, not in a lab. Not through coding, but in that moment, in that store, you demonstrated a level of grace and strength that no AI could replicate. And when I saw you, when I stood behind you, in line and watched it unfold, I knew everything we were building was for people like you. Nia stared at him, her voice suddenly small. So you helped me out of curiosity? No, he said firmly. I helped you because you reminded me of what matters. The moment we start building technology without remembering who it's for, we lose ourselves. Your story grounded me. Again, and then when I found out you were Elijah's sister, it felt like fate aligning, but why keep me in the dark? She asked, eyes shining with tears. Why not just tell me everything from the beginning? Because you were safer not knowing, Sundar said, but the world has moved faster than we expected. And now that your identity is linked to Monarch, you're no longer just a symbol. You're a target. And that means you need to be protected. Nia looked down, her thoughts tangled. She remembered every struggle, every job she worked while carrying Jaden on her back. Every night she cried silently in the bathroom so her son wouldn't hear. And now she was being told that her pain had been observed, studied, respected, but not understood. What happens now? She asked. You choose, Sundar replied. We can relocate you under a new name, give you a new life away from all of this. Or, Nia looked up. You can join us, he said softly. Not as a subject, but as a partner. Help us shape what we build. Teach our developers what real empathy looks like. We don't need more engineers. We need truth tellers. We need you. Nia's heart thudded. Elijah stepped closer. Are you sure about this? He whispered. This isn't just a job, Nia. It's the center of something bigger than all of us. She wiped her tears and looked back at the screen. If I join you, she asked, what about Jaden? Sundar smiled for the first time. He'll grow up with every opportunity, every protection, every chance to dream. And what if I say no? Then we protect you just the same, he said. Because dignity shouldn't depend on compliance. Nia let out a long breath, and in that moment, she felt something shift in her chest, not fear. Not anger, clarity. She looked up again, eyes steady. I've spent my whole life watching from the sidelines. Not anymore, she said. I'll join you, but only if I speak freely. No scripts. No filters. I say what people like me live through. What we feel, what we fear. Sundar nodded, his expression serious. Then welcome to the team. As the screen faded to black, Nia stood quietly. The room pulsing with silence. Elijah walked up and hugged her, long and tight. You did it. He whispered, no, she said. I'm just getting started. But even as peace returned to her for a brief moment, none of them knew what was coming next, because while Sundar Pichai believed Monarch was safe, someone else had already broken through the firewall, and they weren't just after the technology. They were after her. Asterisk. The breach Nia didn't sleep that night. After the call with Sundar, her mind swirled in 1,000 directions at once. The soft ticking of the kitchen clock was the only sound in the dark silence of her home. Jaden slept peacefully upstairs, unaware that his mother had just made a decision that could alter the course of not only her life, but possibly the future of human technology. Elijah sat near the front door, wide awake, a quiet guardian. He kept his phone in one hand, watching live feeds from the cameras outside. The night air was still, but something in the atmosphere felt too still, like the world was holding its breath. Around 3 a.m., Nia stood on the back porch, wrapped in a blanket. Above her, stars blinked quietly in the sky, distant, ancient, indifferent. She looked up at them, thinking about her old apartment, the peeling walls, the lonely nights she had spent crying while Jaden slept beside her. She had gone from scraping pennies to owning a home, from cleaning buildings to being recruited into a secret project, all because of one moment in a grocery store. And yet, despite the blessings, there was a strange ache in her chest, because deep down, she knew something wasn't right. She turned and walked inside as the sun began to rise. Painting the walls in soft orange hues, Riley returned. She wasn't alone this time. 2 more members of the security team accompanied her, and they didn't come with smiles or long explanations. They came with urgency. There's been a breach, Riley said plainly. Someone accessed a secure server tied to Monarch. They didn't go after financials or designs. They pulled profiles. Nia's heart sank. What kind of profiles? Riley looked her dead in the eyes. Your family's? Yours? Elijah's? And Jaden's? Elijah cursed under his breath and paced. The room? Who was it? We don't know yet, Riley admitted. But they moved fast with a signature we've only seen in one place before, an underground data syndicate known as Blackfoe. They sell information to the highest bidder. Corporate, spies, rogue researchers, state actors. Nia clutched the edge of the counter. So, what happens now? Riley handed her a folder. You need to relocate. Immediately. Not in a week. Not in a few days now. Nia opened the folder and saw new documents, a new name, a new address in a city 3 states away. I just got here, she said, her voice breaking. I finally felt safe. Riley knelt beside her, gently. I know, but the people coming after this technology don't play fair. They won't just target devices, they target people. You're not just a symbol anymore. You're the key. They think if they get to you, they can get to Sundar. Nia sat down, holding her head in her hands. He trusted me. I don't want to be the reason everything falls apart. Then we protect you, Riley said, and we fight back. But we need you to go underground for a little while. Sundar's team is already preparing a secure location. You'll have a life, a job, even a new identity if needed. But you'll be invisible to the world for a while. Nia looked at Elijah. His face said everything. He was afraid. Not for himself, but for her and Jaden. How long? Nia asked. Until we stop the leak, Riley said. It could be weeks. Maybe months. Nia walked upstairs quietly and sat on Jaden's bed. He stirred awake, blinking up at her. Mommy. He asked gradually, is it school time? Nia smiled softly and kissed his forehead. No, baby, not yet. But we're going on an adventure today. Just you and me. Can we take my bear? Of course. Within an hour, the bags were packed. Not everything, just the essentials. A photo of her and Elijah as kids. Jaden's favorite toy, a notebook filled with her plans for the future. Everything else could be left behind, but as they stood at the door, ready to leave the house behind, a black van pulled up sharply to the curb. Not the usual team. This one had no markings. Riley's. Phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and her face went white. They're not ours. She whispered within seconds. The house plunged into chaos. The security team jumped into position, shielding Nia and Jaden, while Elijah grabbed a locked case from the coat closet, something that had been quietly delivered the week before. He punched in a code, retrieved a small device, and shoved it into Riley's hands. "This is the backup core," he said. "They can't get this, no matter what." The van's doors opened. Men in black tactical gear stepped out. No emblems, no badges, but they moved like professionals. Out the back. Riley yelled. They raced toward the back door, heartbeats pounding in their ears. Elijah stayed behind to barricade the front, shoving furniture against the door. And I held Jaden tightly, whispering in his ear, "It's okay, baby. I've got you." They exited through the backyard, where a hidden SUV was already waiting, just in case. Riley pushed them inside, barking orders into her cums. "We have the core and the principal. Fallback route, Echo 9 engaged." The SUV sped off, tires screeching. Behind them, Nia saw through the rearview mirror the dark figures swarming the house. Window shattered. The home that had once represented safety now became a battleground. She turned to Riley, breathless. "How did they find us?" Riley answered without looking away from the road. "The footage. The grocery store footage. It was scraped by a social listening bot and sold before we could delete it. That moment when Sundar helped you was supposed to be private, but someone turned it into a weapon." "A moment of kindness," Nia muttered, her voice hollow. "Turned into a target." Riley looked at her now. "And you? You're not just a survivor anymore. You're a living firewall. The emotional heart of this entire project. You're what they'll never be able to code into a machine, and that's exactly why they want to erase you." The SUV veered off the main highway, entering a tunnel that led to an underground facility. Steel doors closed behind them as they entered, locking the world outside. Save. For now, NIA and Jaden were led into a private suite underground. It looked like a normal apartment, just windowless. Elijah joined them an hour later, bruised but safe. He had escaped through a secondary exit while decoys misled the attackers. They sat together in silence for a long time. Eventually, Riley returned with a message from Sundar. She handed Nia a tablet and stepped out of the room. Nia tapped play. Sundar appeared on screen again, eyes weary but resolute. "Nia, I'm sorry. I promised you peace, and you were dragged into a storm. But please know this, you weren't chosen. For pity, you were chosen because you are the one thing this technology lacks: human truth, empathy, soul. Without you, Monarch fails. Not technically, but morally." He paused. "This is not the end. We will take back control. We will protect you. And when this is over, I want the world to see not a CEO or a scientist, but a mother who stood at the center of it all and never gave up." The message ended. And I wiped her face, then turned to Elijah. "You still think I'm just a symbol?" He shook his head slowly. "You're not a symbol. You're the blueprint." That night, in the depths of a hidden facility, Nia watched Jaden sleep once more. But this time, she didn't feel helpless. She felt powerful, not because of technology, but because her story, every painful, unseen chapter, was now part of something bigger. Her voice would guide the future. Her choices would shape it, and no one, not even the shadows chasing her, could take that away, because the world had underestimated a woman who once removed cereal and juice from her cart so her child wouldn't feel the weight of poverty. And now she was the heart of the next great leap in human history. And they'd have to go through the mother, the fighter, the storm, before they got to anything else. Asterisk.